Imagine the scandal if we reported that American pharmacists got 20,000 drug prescriptions wrong last year. Suppose we said that surgeons in the same year did 26,000 bad operations, and on the OB/GYN wards, doctors and nurses had managed to accidentally drop more than 15,000 newborn babies. That's what would have happened if people in those professions had done their jobs correctly 99.9% of the time. 99.9% sounds almost perfect, but in the modern economy, it's only good enough to drive you out of business. Don't think of them as roses. They are, of course, but more importantly, they are items of international trade. Our program is about worldwide economics, about the increasing competition in international trade, and about what it will take to survive in a single world market. The rose is a symbol of all that. Customers increasingly are demanding better flowers at a lower price, and they will buy from whomever can satisfy their demands. For business purposes, national boundaries don't mean much. It is no longer a question of where something was made or grown. The question is, how well was it done? Customers want quality, or else.
It's, you know, I mean, look at them, they're beautiful. We bring in stuff from Spain, from Holland, from Israel, from Africa, merchandise from all over the world. But the main thing is South America. 95% of our material comes from South America. These roses cost us 2 cents in Florida. They cost us 2 cents to get them up here, and they cost us 2 cents to pack them and put them in a box. That's 6 cents a rose. That's 72 cents a dozen. The American market can't compete with the South American market.
The way to compete in flowers or automobiles or disposable diapers is with more quality at less cost. There is no other way. Quality has always been regarded as something like truth, beauty, and true justice, neither definable nor attainable. In the global marketplace, quality is now taken to mean a pragmatic system of continual improvement, a way to successfully organize manpower and machines. We are in the quality revolution, and it's every bit as critical as the industrial revolution. In this and 2 other programs, we'll look at how quality is changing the way we live and the way we do business. We went around the world to put these 3 reports together. We are showing you roses because the flowers are more attractive than car parts or computer chips or telephones. But whatever moves in the world market, the object is the same: make a profit.
Roses, long stem roses bring more money than the shorter stems.
Arnie Therup moved from Denmark to California 30 years ago to grow roses. Growing roses was less expensive in California then, just as it's less expensive in South America now.
The world trade has been good for the flower business. The quality of flowers is superior today to what was 15 or 20 years ago.
Part of what has made the difference in the higher quality and lower cost of roses has nothing to do with growing the flowers. It has to do with how quickly you can get them to market. When roses had to be shipped by truck, the grower's market was limited. No more. A jet can take them anywhere, just as jets first took Therup's roses to the profitable East Coast market. Listen to what Therup says. It is equally true of cars, television sets, and a good many other things as well.
There has been a great increase in the consumption of flowers in this country in the last 10, 15 years. However, all that has gone to the importers. The domestic industry actually is declining every year.
To prevent confusion, American growers are selling more roses than ever, but are making less profit, while American consumers have a greater choice of better flowers for less money. That's caused by worldwide competition. That competition will affect products from everywhere. Welcome to the global marketplace, where every business is one flight away from every customer. The quality revolution involves all of us, every person on the face of the earth. What has caused the changes in the way business and industry compete is transportation and communication. In the 18th century, all economies were local, and they stayed that way until the 19th century, when railroads and the telegraph helped make them national or regional economies. It wasn't until the 1950s that fiber optics were invented, the first satellite orbited the Earth, an improved transistor made modern computers possible, and the first jet airline service started. For business purposes, the world began to shrink and continues to shrink today. Geographic distance is irrelevant.
On board our flight today, we have flight attendants who are fluent in Japanese, Cantonese, Mandarin, German, and French.
Every technical advance had an economic effect that we have not fully appreciated. We are in a competition played with modern technology, where the old rules of quantity give way to the new rules of quality, and everyone can play. It used to be that whoever could make the most would win. Now it's whoever can make the best. Customers want quality. The first problem is that people don't agree on what quality means.
Well, if you use Webster's definition of quality, it's the meaning of excellence.
Quality is the unyielding and continuing effort by everyone in an organization to understand, meet, and exceed the needs of its customers.
Like the Model T car, you could have any kind you wanted as long as it was black. Quality meant making the same thing the same way over and over again in a way which wouldn't break down and would last and be durable.
Quality is the best product that you can produce with materials that you have to work with.
Continuous good product which a customer can trust.
Quality is producing a product or service that meets the needs or expectations of the customer.
Not only satisfying customers, delighting them, innovating, creating, and that's a whole new game.
The sign is absolutely right. Intelligence does run all around the world, and a good deal more quickly than it used to, thanks in part to computers. One place is pretty much the same as any place else, which helps explain why the Statue of Liberty is on an electronic billboard in downtown Seoul, South Korea. In every country, technology is forcing a revolutionary rate of quality improvement demanded by the modern economy.
Now we're moving into a post-industrial, post-modern world in which the key is customization and continual innovation.
With computers, and especially supercomputers, you can test out all sorts of parts of the process, and you can design much more rapidly, so that everything is now happening much more quickly than it ever did before.
10 years ago, it used to take 2 weeks to get your film developed. Today, it takes you 2 hours to get your film developed. The same mechanics, the same principles apply in manufacturing.
10 years ago, the world economy was nothing more than the sum of individual economies.
The only factor of production that is relatively immobile internationally, and therefore upon which our standard of living and the standard of living of every country depends, are the nation's people.
Now the integration, the cross-fertilization, the joint ventures, and the breakdown of lines of culture are creating a truly global marketplace.
There are now hospitals that compete worldwide for the wealthy Arab heart patient or the wealthy European doing discretionary surgery, because they can learn who those customers are, because they can spread their message, because the speed of transportation makes it easy for people to get there. There's practically nothing that's local anymore.
If you don't have skilled people who can work together effectively, and you don't have an infrastructure that is state-of-the-art, your people are not going to have a high standard of living. It's as simple but as complicated as that.
Having an infrastructure that works and people who are trained and educated means you can do the work that requires the most intelligence, and that's the work that makes the most money. At McDonnell Douglas in Long Beach, California in November 1990, dances marked the delivery to thin air of the first MD-11, billed as the most advanced aircraft on the civilian market. In the new economy, making planes is good business. No one country has the capacity to develop new civilian aircraft alone. But making parts for a plane requires less skill, therefore makes less money, than designing, assembling, and marketing the plane itself. So a wing leader made in Canada helps keep American airplane companies competitive, just as does a flap made in Sweden or any of the other parts from Italy, China, Austria, Japan, and other countries being put together to build this MD-80 at Long Beach. By the way, the seats were made in the United States. The key to selling airplanes, or anything else, is giving the customer what he or she wants. Nowadays, it's the only way to close a sale. The airplane, any color you want, has replaced the all-black Model T. Professor Rosebeth Katter is editor of Harvard Business Review.
Systematically, in industry after industry, power is shifting from the people who sell to the people who buy, because they have more choices, because they can get it from anywhere, because there are more companies competing for their attention.
And therefore, unlike the old multinational corporations, which sort of dominated in terms of the supply of information, along with the government, which would give them the license to produce in certain countries, and then they together really dictated the availability of the products in a given market. Now it is completely different. People know what's best, cheapest, best quality. And therefore, it is now the time for the customers to choose products.
If it weren't for the U.S. market, there would be no Japanese miracle. The Japanese miracle is based on the U.S. market. And it isn't only the Japanese miracle. It's all over the world.
We depended much on the U.S. market, and at the same time, we depended much on the Japanese production technology. We combined these two, and we had a very good hard workers. That's the success of the Korean firms.
Multinational corporations, or corporations with multinational markets, are now everywhere. Wherever you go in the world, you see Sony, you see Honda, you see Ford, you see producers distributing their things all over the world.
And making them all over the world. Kurt Ryman is director of the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award, a government program that started in 1988. W. Edwards Deming, the American quality expert, illustrated the global market.
This watch says on the back, assembled in China, from Swiss parts made in Hong Kong.
Dr. Deming uses the watch to illustrate how the world market is one place now. He uses a lighted magnifying glass he carries to illustrate a world standard.
I like this magnifying glass, very handy. It has a light in it. If it needs batteries, I could buy AAA batteries anywhere in this world, and they will fit. I may get stung on quality, but they will fit.
The average American pays 20 cents of every dollar for goods or services produced outside the United States. 70% of the goods produced in the United States right now are competing actively with goods produced in other countries. So that a world market has enormous political and social implications. What happens around the world affects our standard of living.
Where we thought our market was pretty close in Chicago, Fort Lauderdale area. Over the last 10 years, I believe that we quickly changed that to globally in Europe. Lately, we have included Asia, China, more now in Australia, Taiwan, Canada, you name it.
If you have upper middle class people in the United States and in West Germany and in Japan and France, they are more like each other, the counterparts of each other in the different countries, than they are like some of their fellow country people.
The falling away of the boundaries between Eastern Europe and Western Europe is all because people in Eastern Europe wanted to go shopping. They could see it on television, they could learn about it through mass media that doesn't respect national boundaries, and so they too wanted to participate. All over the world now, the customer has more power.
In most industrial countries, for most of this century, the customer has been considered something of a necessary pest who carped and complains. However, countries that were trying to catch up listened to what customers wanted, and that paid off. South Korea was a poor agricultural society at the end of the Korean War in 1953 and is now one of the growing industrial powers. A Korean official has argued that it was the success of capitalist South Korea compared to the chaos and collapse in communist North Korea that forced China to try to change its own enormous but crippled economy. Whatever the cause, China is now part of the world market, principally so far as a source of cheap labor. But what is the nationality of items made around the world? Is a Honda assembled in Ohio a Japanese car or an American car? The Pontiac Le Mans is of such confused parentage that we ask industry analyst and author Mary Ann Keller if she would explain it to us.
It's a car designed by Opel, General Motors' German subsidiary. The car is filled with German-made components. It is assembled in Korea and sold by Pontiac. That's fairly typical, by the way, of what's going on in this world of multiple affiliations.
Not only are there multiple affiliations among car companies, there are more companies in more countries building more and better cars. In the luxury car market alone, there used to be just 6 competitors. There are now 15. In all markets, customers demand quality, and cars like the old East German Trabant that had no quality eventually had no customers. In the past, quality wasn't that important. Only a few customers were wealthy enough to import a foreign car. Now any car made anywhere has to compete with any car made anywhere else. The only way to compete successfully is with a quality management system. Quality management was developed by Americans who taught it to the Japanese after World War II. It's a systematic way to continuously improve, and as you eliminate mistakes, you make better products for less money, and that attracts customers. The future needs of those customers and the ability of your suppliers to continuously improve are critical parts of any quality system. W. Edwards Deming taught that to the Japanese in 1950, and in 1960 he and his wife went back to a hero's welcome. His system is based on statistical measurement of how goods and services are produced, but it is also a management philosophy to make it possible for everyone in the company to work together toward a common goal of customer satisfaction, or even better, customer delight. The highly successful Ford Taurus has a net in its trunk to hold bags upright. It has nothing to do with the car's quality, but customers often mention it as a delight. Thailand's interim Prime Minister Anand, a business executive, has another example.
With the Japanese car, you open the car door and there is a sort of a light, an automatic lighting near the keyhole, so that you can place the key into that slot without any difficulty. But the Germans haven't done it. They're not following suit, and the Americans don't think of that.
There's no question that the pressure of the Japanese in many industries in the 70s made certain companies, not countries, but certain companies aware outside of Japan that the quality world had changed.
First time in human history, wealth is created in the marketplace, not by the military force, or by taxation, or by having these plantations and very exploitative colonial companies. So it is a tremendously fair situation that we have as we move into the borderless world.
More competition, more choices, puts more power in the hands of the customer, and that, of course, drives the need for quality.
But in the borderless world, even the size of the country doesn't matter. If you look at the prosperous nations, I hate to use the word, but nations, Japan, small country, landmass smaller than state of Montana, right? It's a very small island. And then Korea, South Korea is prosperous, Taiwan is just a region, and then Hong Kong, Singapore, Switzerland. These regions or states are characterized by hardworking people, people who are willing to reach out to the global marketplace, no natural resources.
The success of countries that have no natural resources turns accepted economic theory on its head. Economists talk about the comparative advantage of nations, which means, generally speaking, that those nations that have the most resources are expected to have the richest economy and do better than other nations. Quality has changed that. It has been less of a change in Germany with its history of quality enforced by craft guilds. There may have been a guild in Würzburg in the year 1010. If so, it was one of the oldest in Europe. There definitely was a guild there in 1128. Before 1400, the town was known for the quality of its furs and its weaponry, and streets in the older section are named for the fur and armorers' trades. That quality tradition continues in Germany's universal training and apprentice programs. There's training available for the unemployed and school dropouts, and every major manufacturer has an extensive training program. In much of Europe, traditionally, industries have achieved quality by intense inspection. It works, but it's expensive. The German multinational giant Siemens has a plant in Würzburg where it makes electric motors for all but 2 of the world's automakers. It makes other high-quality parts at other plants around the world. But Siemens does not rely on inspection. It now designs quality into the parts, which is the new quality method.
In the beginning, we looked at what was wrong with the car. And for many years, we would do this demerit system. What is wrong? Forgetting about what was right, forgetting about the other elements of the design and how it met customer expectations.
I think the improvement of quality came with a lot of new methods which were developed all over the world. There were methods developed in the United States, some were developed in Japan, and some were developed in Europe. So it was a continuous change of thinking of people, and it's not finished.
And I think, unfortunately, many companies don't respond to quality change until the black ink gets replaced with red ink and they start wondering what's wrong. And at that time, if the response is, I guess we better inspect some more, that's the wrong answer. It's the product. It's how it's delivered. It's the service to the customer. And that's really being learned now.
Being a global company, we can't design and produce one product with a different quality for Japan, for instance, or for Europe, or for the USA. It has to be all the same quality standard.
Meaning, were the parts delivered on time? Did they work? Was technology delivered to the customer in a timely manner? Was the sales contact made in a timely manner? Did the team work together effectively? The Newport News facility makes fuel injectors and anti-skid brake solenoids and transmission solenoids, precise actuation. Devices that have to live millions and millions of cycles. They have to have a flow variance over these millions of cycles of less than 2%, and they've got to be able to open and close in less than a millisecond.
A fuel injector is a fairly simple device that must work with almost infinite precision. It sprays a mist of fuel exactly when and where it's needed to create the most efficient engine operation, that is, the best mileage with the least pollution. But because it must have high quality, does not mean it can't be produced in quantity.
And we produce about 30,000 fuel injectors a day there for the world's customers. That's a unit that in 1985 produced 30,000 fuel injectors a month, and in 1987 produced 30,000 fuel injectors a week, and within a year and a half we'll be producing 30,000 a shift, twice a day.
The management has to work on it, the design engineers have to work on it, and the people in production and so on, all have to think and to work in the direction of quality.
Modern technology has made design easier and faster, but the real change is that all departments involved work together at the beginning of a project to design the product itself and the best and easiest way to make it. Not only do you take advantage of technology, you figure out ways to save steps. For instance, the Siemens fuel injector has been significantly improved by designing it so that it is easier to make.
The old product had 13 minutes of direct labor. The new product has 1 minute and 47 seconds of direct labor. The old product had 13 grinding operations. The new product has 2 grinding operations. That facility produces products today that have a failure rate of of currently under 20 parts per million, and they have a target for 10. And I hope when they get the target for 10 and reach that, they set their target for 5. Maybe you think what you're doing today is good enough, but if you're working on a product for 3 or 4 years out, the definition of quality will change. So the continuous improvement element of quality is the one thing that's probably the toughest to instill in an organization. Quality means more than just something that's inspected in at the end.
In a quantity manufacturing plant, inspection is what drives costs up. By the time the inspector finds a bad part, it has already been made, and it has taken as much time, material, and attention as a good part. Typically, 25% of a quantity plant's budget is spent to find and fix mistakes. You do get quality, but you also get high cost, and that isn't what Siemens customers want. Siemens takes extremely expensive technology from the aerospace industry and figures out how to keep the quality and cut the cost. That's only part of the problem.
When hundreds of thousands of people in this nation came together on behalf of a clean and a safe environment.
Not only must Siemens and other manufacturers find new ways to design and build increasingly higher quality goods at the best possible price, they must simultaneously find ways to answer society's demands for a cleaner environment.
Clean it up, close it down. Clean it up, close it down. Clean it up.
The pressure from the Greens in Europe, the environmentalists in North America, the pressure on making the vehicle more efficient says we've got to change the way the vehicle operates, the way the vehicle interfaces with society. We've got technology, we need to apply it to a solution that the customer can afford. That interface is the fundamental element of how we get our business. Technology drives us.
The ability to use technology and intelligence to find affordable solutions